But when you measure it flat, it contradicts that. I'm spitting flat facts and that. And I know you don't like that. Google Maps is flat, it presents elevation profiles like that. I'm a spitting flat earth king. Sentence has a ring, doing my own thing. If earth was a big roast chicken, factually finger licking chicken. We just got the measurements missing. I'm spitting eggs and begs, begging the question lesson. I've said it before, time after time. I'm the spitting flat earth king of rhyme.
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, how dare you, then be sure to subscribe. Hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a coffee, Patreon, crypto and thanks button in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and X. Now we are joined by Neil, click OK, and a whole bunch of people in the Flipside Discord server, so welcome one and all.
How are you?
I'm very tired, Neil, very tired. How are you?
I'm feeling a little south today, but that's okay.
Oh, well, things are looking north. I had a little deadline set in my mind, so I had the book sent back to me by the publisher for final approval. And when it was open in front of me in a document that was capable of being edited, I couldn't help myself. So I ended up adding a fairly substantial chunk to a chapter that had already been finished written and was there to be checked off. But I was like, I'd really quite like to add the anecdote of a certain map reading company and how they utilised the wrong direction fallacy in asserting that north is generally the top of Earth. I thought, what a wonderful juxtaposition between the actual use of azimuth and horizontal directionality in degrees from north at 0 to the incorrect assertion that we have a sphere Earth with a molten iron core generating a vertical magnetic field where generally north is at the top. Well, this is too useful to pass up in this particular chapter, so I thought I've got to incorporate it. So what started off with me saying, oh, can I just add this sentence, just a line about a particular character's use of the wrong direction fallacy, and then before I knew it, I was introducing it in foreshadowing, you know what I mean? So earlier on in the chapter, before that particular event comes up as relevant, I have to foreshadow it and explain what is about to be used in a more general term, so that when you get to it, it's not that you don't want it to be a surprise. I mean, that's fine, but it just sort of sticks out if it just randomly arrives, especially when in that particular chapter I'm already talking about a different character, but a character with a very limited character arc. So a particular individual comes in and says that they'll offer proof, and then they never come back. 9 years later, we're still waiting after hearing, I'll be right back. Well, that is about it for that particular character and their character arc. So over the top of it, I've then introduced a different character. Now, at one point, I was saying to my wife, shall I just make them the same character? And she's like, nah, just keep it as is. Just explain that halfway through the narrative of this chapter, you're explaining how a particular more recent character has done something, and then just switch back with a little reaffirmation of how this story is narratively interesting to somebody who hasn't come back in 9 years. So I had to do that, and it became complicated and ended up taking the entire weekend. So I woke up this morning, well, my wife and I woke up this morning about 6 a.m. and I'm like, let's get some matchsticks in my eyes. We need to get this finished, sent back to the publisher. So I'm like, let's get it done. So she was working with me right to the wire. She starts work at 9 o'clock, and literally at 9:05 she was sending it off to the publisher, and then I went back to bed. I was like, oh, I'm so tired. So I'm now exhausted.
Sounds like this book is getting better and better.
But my wife even noted that after we'd done it, because I was apologising to her. I was like, I'm really sorry I did this. I've ended up rearranging an entire chapter and having to introduce extra concepts and rephrase affirming the consequent fallacy so they incorporate this specific element that I've now introduced to the chapter. And it took a long time. It's chewed up my wife's entire weekend. And I was like, I'm really sorry. And she was like, no, it's far better that you do this now, rather than sort of going, I really wish I'd incorporate that into the chapter later. And it's in front of us, we've got it open in a Word document. Who cares? But once you've done it, you can't just do it. You've then got to go back through it. And then you find that there's errors. So you amend the errors and carry on through it and then go, well, we better check it over now that we've, checked the errors, make sure it's correct. So then you read it a third time and you think, I need to introduce this extra foreshadowing element to it. But then you've got to start over again and read it all the way through again to make sure there's no errors in that. Before you know it, you've gone through one chapter about 10 times, which is normal, for each chapter. That's what we've done up until now. You go through it and go through it and go through it like I've just described. But this instance, it was already done. I was supposed to be checking it off and going, yeah, I'm happy with that. Bosh, done. But no, I, like an idiot, wanted to incorporate something that was very, very, very recent, like in the last couple of weeks recent, into a book that was written several years ago. So, yeah, that's kind of kept me up till pretty much 9 o'clock this morning, just trying to get it finished and reach a deadline that I'd already agreed to. So there we go. I did manage it, though. It has been done. I am satisfied with the end result. And then I read it through, like the entire book, this morning, before going back to bed. Just after my wife had started work, I just set it on a screen, voice, speech, whatever you call it, to read out to me as I scroll through it. And within 20 seconds of it, there was an error, specifically an acknowledgement for you and John, actually, Neil. So I read it and it said words to the effect of, I acknowledge these two particular individuals who has been around for the entire process. I'm like, when you're talking about two of them, you need it to be have. And this was like on the second line of the book. So I'd already sent it to the publisher at that point. I was cursing. I'm like, oh, damn it. So I made that one correction and then read through the rest of the book and went, no, that's fine. There's a couple of double spaces where there might need to be single spaces, but that was the most egregious thing I could find as I was reading through it. And whether or not they get picked up on, I kind of don't care. You know what I mean? It's not critically important. So yeah, so like I say, I've managed to reach my deadline, albeit with a lot of exhaustion and a complete weekend being used to do it. But that's where we're at. It is still on schedule. It didn't actually, strictly speaking, add any time for me adding this extra bit of information. And it definitely benefits the reader because it meant that it sort of reaffirmed that which was already vaguely being expressed in the chapter anyway. That is to say, you've got a horizontal directionality that's used and utilised via magnetic field lines. But in terms of what that affords us for navigation purposes and has ultimately been used to expand the known territories of the surface that we have surveyed and charted, is that forms part of horizontal directionality, north, south, east, west, azimuth, degrees from north in zero. Those degrees are horizontally orientated when you give them out with a little degree symbol off them. You know, the curve in that particular instance is the curve moving out horizontally of the tool that you measure with a degree from a 0 point being the line at north. Well, that principle's very well established in navigation and has nothing to do with altitude, which is where you get your measurement with respect to ground positions below stars. Well, those two things are separate from one another and aren't there to be violated into each other's principle. You know, if one is horizontal, it's not describing the top of anything. But to have that be explained by way of an individual, a character, and their use of a fallacy, the wrong direction fallacy, to explain how a necessity is born out of this horizontal flat earth principle in prerequisite for directionality, azimuth and degrees in the horizontal for direction, versus altitude, elevation angles, where things topographically deviate with respect to a planar reference, is a vertical description and has nothing to do with north, south, east and west in the horizontal. So it was quite useful to incorporate that into the rhetoric to sort of say, well, why do we need this convoluted gaggle screw of nonsense about Theia smashing into us, whatever it is, 4.5 billion years ago, to increase the size of a molten iron core that gives you a vertical magnetic field? Wink, wink. You know, that's the bit that's surreptitiously slipped in between the fear-based propaganda and mind control that has you believing that you might be smashed into by another planet in the not-too-distant future, or that we might lose our spherical magnetic field that's protecting us from the evil solar radiation, or whatever bullshit they peddle in the heliocentric model that keeps you in fear, but ultimately just distracts you from the fact that, what are we talking about here? Magnetic field lines? What, the one that gives us a principle in the horizontal? That one? Yeah, it is. So it did actually turn out quite nicely and is definitely a worthy addition. So even right down to the wire, it's been incorporated, you know, a current bit of rhetoric has been incorporated into the book. So the delays that have been frustrating and financially expensive for me, and the thefts where people have seen my work as being so valuable they want to ascribe their own names to it, has meant that this delay has ultimately resulted in one very specific chapter having a polish up that has made it really shine. Like, it's a really, really good chapter now, you know, in terms of someone reading it and going, wow. So this whole notion of having spherical magnetic fields is just a big distraction from the actual practical use of the magnetic field lines used in directionality on a flat Earth. So yeah, it was definitely worth the effort.
Did you say horizontal distances?
Yes, all distances when you apply them to Earth and its surface are horizontal, Neil.
Oh dear.
Why?
Well, if you're talking about distance, then we're talking about flat Earth. So why do we got to go any further?
We don't, and we were discussing this in the pre-show, Neil. So there's an unexpected byproduct of offering up these silver bullets of, well, Earth's just being measured flat in all instances. Here's the distance, that's a flat Earth measurement. There's no arguing with that. That's just what miles are. That's just how Earth is measured. It's utilised in prerequisite if you want to assert distance to a geometric horizon. Same goes for things like altitude off sea level. If you want to measure your height to infer that there's a dip angle to a Earth curve edge, then you've got to measure your height off the surface level, and you need an axiomatic average for a plane of reference to describe your altitude perpendicular to it. So you've got all these flat Earth prerequisites that must be accepted. Distance is one of them. When you stop the discussion at the point that you've measured Earth flat, in this case for distance, then the side that formerly identified with us alongside us as flat earthers, in name only, actually anti-globers, find themselves in a position where there is no further need to argue. It is not an argument. Both sides at the start of the process can only agree with the flat Earth prerequisites because they're being used as values taken from Earth surface level measurements. So if you don't want to use them, don't use them. If you do want to use them, well, you've got a flat Earth that's measured. Nothing else needs to be done. We've got a flat Earth measurement for a distance. But then people can't sniff their own farts, lord it over next man, and flex their intellectual prowess. So we get people who are from our own side annoyed with us currently because we're making them redundant. You don't need to know about how the distance to a geometric horizon at 1.22 times the square root of the observer's measured height of a flat Earth based on a sea level average, a flat Earth prerequisite measurement, means that you can show how you're seeing too far, what a horizontal linear mile measurement that you're going to compare to a map that's been measured. Yeah, you've got quite a few flat Earth measurements that you're going to have to both accept and simultaneously whistle past to suggest that you're undoing a globe that's based on those flat Earth prerequisites in the first instance, and is having flat Earth measurements of height and distance punched into calculations that simultaneously ignore how flat Earth must be measured by all parties to even begin the argument. No acceptance and no whistling past the prerequisite flat Earth measurements means no argument, which is annoying to the people who want to argue. Me, I'm all right. I've got a cup of coffee. I don't need an argument, thanks. I know how a mile functions. We've measured it. The Earth, that is, in miles. Yeah, it's all flat. What's that? You think miles curve? Really? How do you describe topographical deviations from the horizontal if miles bend? They don't. But you, someone with no consequence to the subject, are now telling me that miles function completely differently to the axiomatic principles used in their measurement usefulness. Okay, go and believe that. Meanwhile, Earth is just measured horizontal and linear in miles, and topographical deviations, that's curves like hills, are also measured with respect to that horizontal linear measurement in miles. Called an elevation profile. Check it out.
Exactly.
Earth's measured flat.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get through to that guy Berserker, because he posts something that you could take an elevation angle standing in your yard, and you could also take one on the slope of your roof. Okay, what does that prove? You slope. All right, what is your roof sloping to? How you gonna explain? How you gonna use that? What is it in reference to? A slope. You still have to reference the Earth to have any sort of deviation from anything.
I mean, what people are suggesting is because you can raise in altitude. Okay, let's just stop there. Altitude, like how high you are off surface level, measured from sea level. Yeah, well, if you're on your roof, you're going to say, well, I'm this high. Well, this high from what? Surface level? The ground level? Or sea level? Which one do you want to be really accurate and give you height above sea level? Well, then you'll need sea level. You've got to have measured a flat Earth axiom as an average for the entirety of Earth for you to make that assertion for your altitude. And what's that? Once you get up to a measured altitude from surface or sea level, you say that you're not at the surface level to measure an angle for an altitude angle. That's elevation angle. What's elevation mean? Well, like from the surface. Yeah, if you're at altitude, you need to know how high off the flat Earth surface level you are. Why? So you can correct it to the surface level. It's called a dip angle correction because you're not actually at the surface. If you're bobbing around in a lifeboat, actually at the sea level, no corrections needed. You're already at zero. You don't need to measure your height off a flat Earth to correct it back to it when you're using the surface to form part of the angle. The elevation angle, I seem to be hearing people suggest, has nothing to do with the surface. Look up what elevation means, you bunch of clowns. I know for a fact that none of these people who are decrying what the word elevation means when they say, this has nothing to do with the ground. Really? You don't understand what elevation means. Good job, you are utterly inconsequential to this process. You haven't gone out and expanded the known territories. You haven't mapped or charted any of the world. You didn't come up with the convention of miles as a linear distance measurement. You didn't utilize the linear distance measurement to derive the heights of the hills or, derivatively, the height of your roof. You didn't do any of those things at all. But why are you telling me that I'm wrong and it's not the surface, this elevation angle? Oh, it's because you want to whistle past all of it and argue about how non-spherical the world is. Let's forget all these flat Earth measurements off surface level, sea level, with eye level. Let's forget that we're utilising this to make an elevation angle. That's got nothing to do with the ground. Until we use it and pop it into a calculation that suggests that a parallel eye level, what, parallel with ground level? Yeah, in prerequisite, it's got to be flat also. Well, that'll infer a tangent point horizon. Okay, so we're going to whistle past the flat Earth measurement from the surface level. We're going to ignore that in order for that to be in any way accurate, we need to have measured sea level as an average. We're going to ignore that we're going to be taking or correcting our distance from the surface level, and we're going to ignore that eye level must be parallel with it when we calculate into existence by way of a sphere derived from flat Earth elevation angle measurements to the sun or Polaris. We'll ignore all 5 of them so that we can then argue about whether or not we've got sphericity. Forget all the flat Earth measurements we've just used. They're nothing to do with the ground. It's only the ground after we've used them, ignored them as being ground measurements. Then we can start asserting curved grounds. But we have to ignore all of the measurements of the flat ground, okay? Let's not pretend they're the ground. Yeah, they're only the ground when we use them and punch them into measurements that say the ground's curving. Okay? Let's get it right.
Yeah, they're stupid. Hi, guys. Even when, using the C sextant, you will be utilizing the horizon, which is referencing the surface of Earth to establish horizontal, yeah, with a GP down to that point. And then once you've done your height of eye correction, your eye will also be at sea level, and that horizontal radius line will be used for the circle of equal elevation or equal altitude. And so you are utilizing the surface of Earth, definitely when out at sea, navigating the surface of Earth. There's no two ways about it.
Agreed. I gave this guy a definition because he said an elevation angle is not referencing the Earth. So I read him. The solar elevation angle, or solar altitude, is the vertical angle between the sun's rays and the horizontal plane of the Earth's surface. So how is it not the ground if it says right here, the horizontal plane of the Earth's surface, ranging from 0 degrees at sunrise, sunset to 90 degrees directly overhead?
I mean, this isn't up for discussion. It's not like this is a debating point. When you detail what an elevation, that means from the surface, angle, that means two straight lines meeting at a vertex, is by definition. That's not you presenting somebody with a contentious point or an argument or logic. It's just a description of a measurement that includes Earth's planar surface to form part of an angle, an elevation angle. One line goes up to the object that you are measuring in the vertical. The other line is formed with the surface level. The horizontal plane of Earth's surface, end quote, Neil citation. Well, yeah, that's what elevation means. It's in the title. It's a pretty big clue, unless you're really stupid. Earth's measured flat with elevation angles. What we're measuring for? Oh, a ground position below the star at 90 degrees. What's that? I hear you cry. It's not the ground! Oh, I see. So when we're measuring elevation, that's from the surface, for a ground position, it's not the... Piss off. Get lost, you stupid fart-sniffing dweeb. Yeah, we measure Earth flat with elevation angles.
He told me, because the definition he gave me was some baller definition about tangents, and he wants me to address his definition, but totally ignored the definition I gave him, which says the Earth's surface. So it's a waste of time. We're all alone here. They want it to be logical. He even said it going back and forth. He says, answer, and something about logic. I forgot what he said. And I got other people saying, yeah, I got lots of arguments. It's like a measurement is not an argument. Like, what are you doing here? Well, that's what it is. They wanna be the gurus, I guess. I don't know.
Well, that's something else that I think people may derive pleasure from when they read my book when it comes out. That is to say that I've incorporated the flat Earth measurements into our so-called previous arguments. That is to say, where housekeeping questions kept the globers in check, where their claim to be proof of sphericity had already been debunked, I've now incorporated flat Earth prerequisites into every aspect of those so-called suggestions that had already been overturned in years gone by. So that as you're reading it, you can either accept and acknowledge how flat Earth must be utilised to create a sphere to have previously argued about it on Flat Earth Debate, or not. You can say, I don't want to accept that elevations from surface level. You don't have to. But it's often being utilised as part of a rhetoric that is spherical to begin with. It's just up until me noting it, nobody else has. Nobody said, whoa. What do you mean you want to measure your height off surface level? What, perpendicular to a plane of reference with a 90-degree ground position? That's to say, 90 degrees to the surface level. It's elevation measurements of angle. Elevation angles. Ignore the GP. No, that's a flat Earth measurement. Most sphere Earth claims are based on it. Now, if you say, I don't want to accept that, okay. We'll kick out your radius value with its linear distance in miles. That's come from elevation angles. That's where you measure Earth flat to infer flat level radii. And when you've got them, you can then convert those flat Earth measurements into sphericity. Convert being the operative word. It's a calculation into an alleged sphericity. It's not a measurement of sphericity. You calculate the globe into existence with flat Earth measurements. Now, we used to say, well, that puts you between a rock and a hard place. Either you accept the flat Earth prerequisites that build your sphere. That's the redundant bit that made it novel. Or you accept that Earth is measured flat. Well, once you accept that that's how it's measured, there's no, well, I'm going to convert that into a distance to geometric horizon below the surface level that I've just measured. You're like, no, you don't get to do that. As soon as you recognise how flat Earth is being measured, your calculations of sphericity become completely inconsequential. We've got measurements, though, they're flat. Well, you don't want to accept them, only the after-the-fact calculations that use the flat Earth measurements. No, we won't be doing that with you. But it means from a flat Earther's perspective, what have they got to argue about? Distance to horizon's 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet, and I can see that this building would be behind an Earth curve at a distance in flat Earth miles, so I must ignore, so I can have this argument. We come along and go, well, your distance is a flat Earth mile measurement off these maps here that's been surveyed. Ordnance Survey measured it flat. The whole surface. For you to say that you've got an accurate distance to anything, you need flat Earth miles that have been measured to assert it. Not by you. You're not measuring anything. You're a fart-sniffing idiot on the internet. But meanwhile, smarter people than you went out already and measured it flat in miles for you to use these miles. What's that's nothing to do with the ground? Well, don't use them then. That's all right. Won't change what a mile is or how Earth's been measured with it.
But I thought they're trying to prove flat Earth, Nathan. So
No,
why
these
would
people
you
are liars.
run measurements?
No, these people who have lied to us and said that they want to prove that Earth is flat and wake up the masses did not. At best, they wanted to be the guru that planted the idea in next man's mind that Earth could be flat based on their oh so fantastic knowledge of how non-spherical the world is, that they'll bore the tits off you with. That's what they really wanted. They wanted to be the gurus and arbiters of new information. Information beyond the general recognition of a public that's deluded into believing the Earth is spherical. Now we come along and go, well, believing the Earth is spherical starts with measurements of a flat Earth. And anybody who asserts that they've got sphericity must and can only accept the prerequisite flat Earth measurements of, I don't know, Polaris to give you an equator. Well, what's your equator? You think that's spherical? Where's it measured? Oh, flat? Elevation angles? Yeah, it is, yeah. What about time itself? How did you acquire this concept? Oh, you measured the sun with elevation angles off a flat plane? Yeah, that's right. That's the end of this discussion, though, isn't it? What's that? No, I want to accept distance, flat Earth, horizontal linearity. I want to accept time based on elevation angle measurements to the sun. I want an equatorial plane. It'll just be in the middle of a ball and flat. And I want to ignore all prerequisites that gave us them, because that would show that we're just measuring Earth flat. I want to ignore all of them and start with the presupposition that we're on a globe and ignore that the measurements that got us here were flat. Then we can start our argument. Now, that's me as a so-called flat earther doing that, because I want to argue how it's not a ball. So we've got to accept all these flat Earth measurements that create it into existence to show how wrong it is. But it ruins all the fun if we start at, well, we've got a flat Earth mile measurement. Stop! Well, then we've measured Earth flat already. We don't need to do anything else. That's the end of the discussion. Surf Daddy supplied us with a list of what we generally refer to as Feast of Nonsense questions, which is to say how people used to infer that they were proving Earth was flat when they went through certain arguments that begged the question of sphericity and then argued about whether or not that was correct. So we've got, I'll just read out his preamble. These are quote-unquote proofs and arguments we have all used over the years that are now rendered moot and void by the fact all measurements from or of the surface of Earth are made with respect to a horizontal plane of reference. What I want to do, this is not going to get done today, right? We're going to go through a couple of them and just discuss them. These are our feast of nonsense so-called arguments from years gone by in a nice little concise list. We're going to go through them one at a time. There's over 60 of them. And we're going to start identifying where they're garbage or where they're whistling past flat Earth prerequisites. So the first one on the list is the Bible repeatedly describes the Earth as immovable, stationary, geocentric, and enclosed in a solid dome structure called the firmament, I should say. So this is alleged to be a flat Earth proof. Okay, we'll start there. Who's got any comments?
Well, you can't validate the firmament as far as, we don't know what it is. I wouldn't go in that direction.
Well, I'd start by saying it suggests that we've got a immovable, that's the biblical terminology, and then in brackets from Sir Study, stationary Earth. Okay, that's a non-positive claim. I assert we are not a roast chicken. Prove it. No, it's not necessary. It's a non-positive claim. If there's an assertion that we are a roast chicken, then that's a positive claim that would need to be backed. Now, non-positive claims, we're not moving. Yeah, no shit. What's that? There's an assertion that we are. All right, how's that proven? That's where the burden lies. Not with somebody to assert that, well, in contradiction to the outrageous claim that the very ground that you're standing on moves, you must prove that we don't. No, you don't have to do that. You don't have to prove non-positivity, right? The outrageous claim is what needs to be substantiated. We aren't making it. This is not a flat Earth proof. You don't have to reach for your Bible to show that we're not moving. If you want to claim we are, you better have some bloody good proof of it. Not, well, it's suggested Earth turns underneath at 15 degrees an hour. Look at the stars move. What's that? There's no demonstrable evidence of Earth turning underneath anything. You and your reference frames have been ruined. Yeah, you're going to have to do better than that. That's not proof of two different reference frames. That's an assertion in the positive that fails immediately and is then rendered, relinquished, I should say, by the person making it. What's that? No reference frame deviations. Okay, so no proof you've got an Earth turn then. Yeah, that's how it boils down. We don't have any proof that there's Earth turning. It's suggested to be proven with a Coriolis deflection that we don't see. That's the end of that discussion. I'm undoing the positive burden.
Just going to say, though, Nathan, well said.
Anybody else got any comments on the dome one?
It's difficult that way. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, Neil's already said it, even though nothing against the scriptures or anything, but it's difficult. You shouldn't be really using that when we're talking about measurements. And the point you've just read out didn't mention anything about measurements, did it? It mentioned immovable, like you've said, a dome structure, which we can't prove anything of, and nothing at all about measurements. So, but this is what it did happen quite a lot in previous times gone by. People would jump onto the scriptures in order to prove the shape and measurements of Earth without actually talking about measurements.
Yeah, again, if you want to undo a positive assertion that the sky is a vacuum in violation of the second law of thermodynamics, then feel free to unpack somebody's positive assertion that the sky is an availability of volume that gas at high pressure is not dispersing into. That's their claim. You don't need to assert that there is containment for the high pressure gas. It's an antecedent. The consequent being the fact that we're breathing. Now, that is not a positive claim. We are definitely breathing. We are definitely experiencing high pressure gas. Do I need to justify it? No. I'm not making any positive assertions about what the sky is. What's that I hear? The sky is actually a vacuum. There's rockets in an orbit. Well, okay. Orbital motion is derived from flat Earth prerequisites of elevation angle measurements and extrapolations in terms of distance made by Huygens when he superimposed a spherical radial value onto Venus for the purposes of scaling. That's a prerequisite flat Earth measurement derived into sphericity and then extrapolated out by pure fiat and assumption for distance. That's orbital motion when put into seemingly practical application. What, for rockets going around the moon? Definitely not. Rockets are not entering a sky vacuum in violation of natural law to travel a distance that's been extrapolated by flat Earth prerequisite elevation angle measurements and presuppositions by Christian Huygens about Venus's spherical radial value measured here flat. That's not going to cut it to prove that there's a sky vacuum. Again, not my claim. Yeah, what's the sky? I don't care. Couldn't give a shit.
Yeah, and plus, once you've stated that, like you say, you're putting the burden on yourself to prove where is this dome? What's it made of? How high is it? Where does it end? You know, once you've gone down that dome point in the scripture, you're opening yourself up to prove all that.
Perfect.
Unfortunately, there is a lot of flat Earth people on YouTube still sort of going down that road as flat earthers, as proof.
You rounded that up beautifully. I was going to say exactly the same thing to round out that particular point, this first point about sky vacuums and domes being made as assertions by flat earthers. Why? Sorry, is there some necessity for you to make this claim? Now you've got to defend it, though. So what's the dome? How high is it? Height being a flat Earth perpendicular elevation measurement from surface level or sea level. Nevertheless, regardless of this easy to prove measurable distance in the vertical from sea level being a flat Earth prerequisite, there is no necessity for you to make this claim. You're doing it because you've had a successful burden of proof reversal fallacy employed upon you, where your so-called opponent suggests the sky is a vacuum, and they flip the burden to make it seem appropriate for you to start explaining with biblical cosmology what the sky is. Why? Did you need to make a claim about the sky? Do you want to make an assertion about it? Where's your standard? Oh, the Bible told you so. Well, why? What relevance does it have? Oh, we've got an extraordinary claim that the sky is a vacuum, therefore you felt it was necessary. It wasn't. Didn't need to do that. But now you've got to defend it. What a pain in the arse. Next, all images of the Earth from space are admitted to be computer generated. Who wants to have a bash at that one? It's a very similar theme to the first one, but
yeah, I mean, the first thing that pops, yeah, this was argued. You'd spend time discussing and pulling up NASA videos of how they do have to do that and patch it all up. So, you know, when, you know, so what? I mean, sorry, I'm just trying to get it back up, but just read it again, Nathan. All images of Earth from space are admitted to be computer generated.
yes.
Yeah. So we're going to argue about this, are we? I'll put this forward as a proof of the shape of the Earth. That somebody in a room somewhere on a computer may be putting images together of a so-called area called space, which can't exist because it violates the second law of thermodynamics. I mean, how much time are you going to spend on that? But it's got nothing, again, to do with a measurement of the surface of the Earth that you're standing on.
Perfect little segue. So that's where I was going to take it immediately. You're of one mind with me today, one deck it would seem. So my question would be, to the person who has the burden, that's their extraordinary claim that there's men flying in the sky, taking pictures of a sphere Earth from a sky vacuum. What height did they take this so-called photo from again? Not, is it real, is it CGI? How high were they? From sea level? Next, we're able to see objects such as land, building, and boats that are supposed to be behind the curve. This annoys me greatly. I'll just say that straight away. It does piss me off. This whole notion that something is supposed to be behind Earth curve. You're like, okay, how are we going to get to this point where we've got an assertion that the Earth curve is supposed to block our view? Well, what we do is we infer a distance, that's a flat Earth horizontal linear distance, used by comparison on maps that have been measured by the Ordnance Survey. And we're going to get to that value by measuring our perpendicular height off sea level. Now, sea level must be level, because we're going to be applying mathematics that requires eye level be parallel with surface level. So we must measure Earth flat to get an accurate sea level in the form of mean sea level measurements. Then we can measure our height with respect to this common reference that's been measured flat called sea level to give us our altitude perpendicular to sea level. We will also measure a target and its elevation with respect to the same common reference from sea level. And then we can infer that the distance to a geometric horizon below surface level is 1.22 times the square root of the observer's measured height off a flat Earth, so that we can see how much blockage should be there in an orthographic calculation that automatically assumes a radial value that's been derived from flat Earth measurements also. So back to, let's whistle past 5 different flat Earth measurements to infer that we can calculate a flat Earth linear distance in miles to a point below the surface level when we use mathematics that shows the side of our own head in an orthographic view and calculates a distance below a surface level that's measured flat at 1.22 times the square root of the observer's measured height off a flat Earth. Because when we do that and ignore all the flat Earth prerequisites, we can say that we're seeing too far. Very annoying. Anybody else got any comment on that one? Number 3 we're on, if you're following along in G+, in Master B.
No, I think you covered that quite well. I don't think you could go anywhere else. I don't think there'd be any other direction to take on that, Nathan.
Number 4, NASA and Obama say that we cannot leave low Earth orbit due to the Van Allen radiation belt. What's low Earth orbit? Low? Height, you say? Like low Earth orbit? That sounds very much like a flat Earth height measurement off sea level to me. Am I missing something? What's that? We shouldn't talk about that. We have to whistle past it. What about orbits? What, you're talking about the derived radial value measured off a flat Earth put into Keplerian orbital motion with scale distances from Huygens' assumption that Venus has the same flat Earth measurement ascribable to it? That sounds like quite a few flat Earth measurements right there, doesn't it? Orbits, you say? Yeah, we're going to need to measure a flat Earth for those. Should we whistle past those too? Yeah? We'll whistle past our low, that's height off surface level, Earth orbit, and pretend that the azimuth and altitude measurements used to acquire a radial value, they're not flat Earth measurements either. What's the height of the Van Allen radiation belts, I ask you? Now, let's get into whether or not they should have been poisoned by them rather than just having a measurement to and be a flat Earth prerequisite. Yeah, I'll accept your Van Allen belts. How high do you say they are? Off a flat Earth? Any more on number 4?
No, I mean, I was just going to say, yeah, they do put a height to that apparent location, so that would be in reference to the 0 degree baseline that we call sea level. Yeah, height off sea level.
Right, next, North Pole or North Pole star Polaris never moves and the constellations remain consistent. So forget about the constellations in this particular argument. I get why it's been thrown in there because someone said it at some stage. But the North Star never moves. Okay.
Well, it is you. Sorry, Nathan.
Yeah, you go ahead.
I was just saying, I would also automatically point out that the Polaris is used to measure elevation angles from sea level in order to, for our coordinates, latitude and longitude. We use that for elevation angles are used to measure latitude. from Polaris, to and from Polaris. I'd simply just point that out. Don't need to talk about whether it moves or the other constellations. We use it from sea level for measurements that we use to navigate a map.
Yeah, it seems like a red herring fallacy. Like, have a look at Polaris, it's not moving. Oh, yeah, no, it's not moving. And what's it actually practically useful for? Oh, right, for deriving spherical systems with ever-decreasing or increasing circles as you move towards or away from Polaris, called latitude. Yeah, they're very useful areas of equal elevation we measure off a flat Earth with elevation angles. We've used them to expand the known territory, map and chart the world, create systems that we can plot onto maps, after lots of gerrymandering and conversion to and from sphericity into tubular maps and back out flat again for square grids comparable to the original measurements of areas of flat equal elevation with flat altitude angles to these stars, including but not limited to Polaris, which what doesn't move? Who gives the tiniest of shits? We measure Earth flat with it, but we've got a load of drongo flat earthers just looking at it going, yeah, don't move. Who cares? We measure Earth flat with it. The globe's reliant upon it. Good.
Isn't north a flat direction?
Yes. Yeah, you measure it in the horizontal with azimuth or degrees from north, with north being 0. Any more on this one about Polaris not moving?
No, I think you've covered Polaris. You said you didn't want to talk about the constellations. You wouldn't now, but I think what Daddy's pointing out is like, yeah, people used to, well, if we was on a ball flying through space at such a speed, then, we wouldn't see the same constellations year after year. So flat earthers were putting that, they was arguing that point as some sort of proof of a flat Earth, which it isn't. It's just trying to say we obviously don't live on a globe flying through the vacuum of space. Because if it was, the constellations would change dramatically, probably day or weekly or monthly. That's where people used to spend the time and energy. Not talking about measurements measured from sea level.
Right, number 6. Weather balloon footage and high-altitude aeroplane footage show that the horizon is flat and rises to eye level.
High altitude, you say?
What's that? The elevation of the balloons or aircraft from the sea level that we also measured flat to give us a perpendicular altitude from it? Yes, that's correct, One Deck. The flat Earth measurement from sea level of balloons and high-altitude aeroplanes show the horizon rises, according to this suggestion, to eye level and is flat.
Would that aeroplane, once at level flight, be flying straight and level, referencing sea level?
Yes. The flight level will always remain parallel with the surface level, whereas eye level, when cross-referenced with a horizon that's formed with the ground, will not rise with eye level. It's formed with the ground, and you've raised up from the thing forming it. So it's going to descend in your visual acuity as you raise in altitude, because the point in the distance is formed with the ground that you've raised up from. Now, if you're out on the aeroplane using a sextant in the aeroplane, you'll use something called a bubble sextant. Because of the axiomatic principle that your flight level and eye level are parallel with ground level, if you have a tool that automatically levels based on a bubble, that's a bubble sextant, then you can utilize the axiomatic principle of parallel ground level with eye level. If, however, you happen to be using a mariner's sextant that utilizes the horizon, then you would need to know your elevation off the surface, because it is the surface level that is forming the horizon. The eye level's parallel with the ground. The horizon will drop as you raise in altitude, and it's calculable. so that when you use a tool, in this case, a mariner's sextant, with the horizon, you must make a correction to bring it in line with what would be automatically useful with a bubble sextant to acquire parallel eye level with surface level. The horizon does not give you an eye level. It's formed with the ground level. So not only is this assertion that the horizon rises to eye level is wrong, it completely ignores all practical applications of the horizon. Now, if you're in a dinghy, because you've got your situations such that you've lost your main boat and you're actually in a lifeboat, then you're already at the sea level. So if you're pointing your sextant, mariner sextant, at the horizon in those circumstances, you're already at the same level as the ground. You're at zero if you're in a lifeboat. So no altitude or height of eye, as it is known, correction, is needed to be made, because you haven't raised up above the surface level. Now, likewise, if you're in a boat that hasn't sunk and you're not in a lifeboat and you're using a mariner sextant, then you make a minor correction. When you're at port, you measure the height of the crow's nest with respect to the sea level so that you can always utilise the same calculated correction back to the surface level that forms the horizon, which you are above. Doesn't change the useful aspect of the ground level forming a point in the distance we call the horizon. It's still useful even at altitude, so long as you know your altitude. What's altitude? Your perpendicular measurement from sea level, like you'd use in a plane for flight level, or eye level to be parallel if you're going to infer a distance to a geometric horizon below the surface level. All of which requires flat earth measurements 6 ways from Sunday. Doesn't alter that there's a bastardization of how the horizon is used when it's incorrectly asserted to rise to the eye level. It does not. That's just wrong. Meanwhile, practically applied to save your life at sea, when you can use the horizon to acquire an elevation angle. It just might need some finagling if you're above the surface level that forms it. Any other comments on that one?
No, all good, that, Nathan. Well said.
Where are we? North Star Polaris. Never changes. Weather balloons show aeroplanes and the horizon must be flat and always rise to eye level. That's the one which is covered. Most of the astronauts that supposedly landed on the moon would not swear on the Bible or even accept money for charity of their choices. And that's what it's got. So I'm assuming that if this is talking about Bart Sabrell, when he's literally gone up to various different Apollo astronauts, put a Bible in front of them as God-fearing men and said, place your hand on the Bible and say, I swear to God I went to the moon. And he got abused, kicked in the arse quite literally, and told no. Very amusing. Meanwhile, what, they're not going to swear on the Bible before God that they went to a sky vacuum? No, they won't, because they're liars. They didn't go through a second law of thermodynamics violating area of volume the gas is not filling to take a suggested path at a distance derived from flat earth measurements of elevation angles extrapolated into orbital motion, as we covered earlier. They're just liars. Didn't want to condemn their souls to hell, clearly. Anybody else got anything on the astronauts not wanting to swear on the Bible? I think we might get through 10 a day. It'll take us about a week to get through all of these. Water is always level and makes up 71% of our Earth. I'm just going to say straight away, 46.3% of all statistics are made up on the spot. Vic Reeves.
Yeah, I mean, let's read that again. Sorry, Nathan, I'm in and out.
71% of Earth's water, as alleged it is level. Basically.
Yeah. Well, I'd never go down that 71. I mean, there's obviously quite a bit of water on the Earth. You know, the oceans are connected. and they do have an average level. It's called mean sea level. Mean sea level. So that we use that mean sea level, for all elevation profiles on Earth. I don't know exactly what the percentage is in relationship to Earth. That's a globe claim, I think.
It's complete bloody red herring, isn't it? Who gives a crap how much percentage someone suggests that the Earth's water occupies? We're using and measuring Earth's sea level as a master reference to compare all topographical changes, and as we've just detailed, altitudes from it. You want to describe your altitude? Well, you'll need a measured flat Earth of the sea level. Clues in the title. What's that? Let's argue about whether or not water is level and how much the percentage is. Now, this is an axiomatic principle used in all measurements of altitude. Topographical changes being an altitude deviation from the sea level that we've measured. It's flat, it's level. That's the principle that's been averaged when the rise and fall of the oceans is averaged to give us that master reference to describe altitude and topographical changes from. This is not up for debate. That's how we've measured Earth. Any more?
Just go look at a map. Just go and look at a map or Google Maps. It'll show you the horizontal baseline used for all elevation profiles on Earth. Like you say, it's the master reference for all measurements.
Okay, I don't really get this one. This next one's not got anything attached to it. NASA is budgeted at $56 million a day. End statement. I've got nothing.
Oh, really?
Don't know if really.
I could say he has referenced a day. Now,
Oh, slick! Very slick. Man, I had nothing. That's excellent. He did say day. What's a day?
Well, there's 24 hours in a day, and that's a reference of time, and it is measured using the sun from the horizontal plane.
I see. So it's an average measurement of the angle with respect to the sun and its trajectory over a 12-month period. What's a month? Yeah, we've got time in there. Very well spotted. My hat is off to you because I would have left it with I've got nothing. NASA is budgeted at 56 million a day. What can I come with? Day! Left field. Absolutely epic. I love it. Right, number 10. Operation Paperclip, Nazi Germany helped from NASA, e.g. Werner von Braun. I don't really understand that. Operation Paperclip, Nazi Germany helped form NASA. Again, I've got nothing.
No, I think I've heard some people talk about this. They NASA's connected with the Nazis, and I don't know what that's got to do with a measurement of Earth. Operation Paperclip, Nazi Germany. I mean, Germany is,
A location.
It's a location with reference to latitude, which is an elevation angle measurement taken from sea level. That's all I've got on that one.
Yeah, it doesn't strike at the heart of what's being suggested. I mean, this is a conspirator. I mean, this is feast and nonsense, obviously, through and through, right? But what? So what? Okay, yes, it is suggested that people like Werner von Braun, who is very German-sounding, let's be honest, was rounded up by the Americans after World War II and then put into, training camps where they had to science for the Americans. I would assume they're doing it under very little duress. But the fact that he originated from Germany, this is Werner von Braun, the father of rocketry, well, okay, so what? Does that mean that there's some conspiracy about the acquisition of German scientists in name only?
Nathan, he has Psalm 19 on his gravestone.
Which is?
The heavens declare the glory of the Lord, and the firmament shows his handiwork.
And?
There you go.
There you go. And?
What do you mean, and? He knows something.
That's taken us back to the first or second. I know what you're saying, Neil. That's taken us back to the first. What was the first or second question? With the Earth is immovable. So That's on the Hollywood pavement. But then you into that, then talking about the firmament and the dome. So yeah, I don't know. It's that's what. Yeah, people have argued this. No, it's not like I don't know why they're arguing it. It's not a bloody measurement.
Well, we've heard that for years. You know that.
So with the last one on today's show, the heliocentric model was created by Freemasonic satanic occultists.
Oh boy.
I had to laugh in the rewrite we did over the weekend. I was describing the copyright strikes, and I was linking it back to your current japery in regards to superimposing up or top and down / bottom in substitution for feeling good when you say you're feeling, up, or you're upbeat, or you're feeling sad, downbeat, whatever, right? Well, you've been superimposing it off the back of Wayne from the mapping channel when he asserted that generally north is the top. And you'd be saying, well, don't feel down about this. Well, I had to incorporate that specific rhetoric into the book. And what was the question that we're asking this in regards to? Oh, yeah, satanic occultists. So I'm describing how you, in my book, are saying to me, don't get down about having 33 copyright strikes over the period of 11 years. Things will be looking north soon, right? That was the kind of joke that I incorporated into the chapter that I was editing. I shouldn't have been. I should have been signing it off. But nevertheless, I couldn't resist it and added in some extra bits. But, the point being, when I read it back, it was part of a chapter where I'm describing a guy who came in 2017 to say, I've got evidence of the self-perpetuating molten iron core. And we're like, we'll go and get it then. It's like, okay, I will. I'll be right back. And then I'm describing how it's 9 years later and he still hasn't come back, right? So then I look at it, and then within 2 or 3 sentences, I've got 33, 9, and 11 all in the same section. And I'm looking at it going, someone's going to read this and say that I intentionally used 33, the number of copyright strikes I've had, 11, the number of years I've had them over, and 9 for the number of years that it's taken Paul Voigt to actually never return. I'm like, just doesn't make me a Freemason. It's just a coincidence, I tell you, a coincidence.
Sure it is.
Well, yeah, it is, literally. It's just numbers. That just happens to be the numbers. It has literally been 9 years since Paul Voigt said, I'll be right back with his evidence of the molten iron core. It is literally 11 years of copyright strikes that I've received. 33 was just the number that I arbitrarily ascribed. I think it's probably around that number, about 30. So I'll be honest, I just put 33 in because it was approximately the right number. I haven't actually counted, if I'm ruthlessly honest.
Why not 34, Nathan?
Why not 37? Because it might not be correct. That's why.
I'm just saying, have you got a copy of this heliocentric model that the satanic occultist created? I'd like to read through that.
It might be a good read. Right, any more for any more? If not, we're going to round out this live stream. No,
that's great. Good. Some good points there, Daddy. It was nice change going through them. Well structured. Yeah, good one, Daddy. He's not here today, is he? But yeah, it was good. That do some more tomorrow.
There's 49 more of them, so we'll probably be doing them for the majority of the week. But with that, I'll say, if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, though, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So another massive thank you to all of you who liked, commented, shared, subscribed. Shout out to Cleary for hitting the super chat. He says, welcome to the Euclidean 3 space. Thank you very much indeed to Cleary for the super chat. And again, a massive thank you to my Discord and Cheapest panels, and all of you for liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, joining as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member. Hit me up on PayPal, Patreon, smashing the super thanks, all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
But when you measure it flat, it contradicts that. I'm spitting flat facts and that. And I know you don't like that. Google Maps is flat, it presents elevation profiles like that. I'm a spitting flat earth king. Sentence has a ring, doing my own thing. If Earth was a big roast chicken, factually finger licking chicken, we just got the measurements missing. I'm spitting eggs and begs, begging the question lesson. I've said it before, time after time. I'm the spitting flat Earth king of rhyme.